Welcome back to another episode of WVU Marketing Communications Today, the only show that sits squarely at the intersection of data-driven decision-making and modern marketing practices, with the man who seems to know it all, Michael Lynch. I was so awed in his presence, I choked up. That's all I can say.
I'll tell you what, I've been accused of being a know-it-all more than once. But first of all, I want to wish everybody a very, very happy Halloween. Completely forgot that this was a podcast, so I did come in costume today.
Yes, as did I.
Just can't see it.
It's under your shirt.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Today we are going to talk to Jim Copacino. He is one of the founders of Copacino+Fujikado, and today we're going to talk about creative briefs. So, Jim, let's start off by talking about what is a creative brief.
Sure thing. And hi, Michael. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Thank you. I think every marketing communications team, in agencies or on the client side has some form of creative brief. And basically, it's a document that serves as kind of a blueprint for a communications effort. And in its essence, it sort of outlines the communications objective, the target audience, and it gives us a point of view about the content and tone of the message. So it's really a starting point for a campaign or for a marketing program.
Excellent. But why are creative briefs important?
It should serve as the foundation of the entire effort. A roadmap that provides guidance and vision for what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. What I think is really important is how maddeningly subjective evaluating creative work can be. So it creates a kind of shared point of view among all the stakeholders who are going to be involved in the campaign or in the program. It provides an agreed upon baseline for evaluating the creative work that follows. So it takes some of the subjectivity out of that process.
Okay, but really, who owns the creative brief?
It really varies from organization to organization. And in some cases, it's the account planner or the research specialist who, and generally, they represent the consumer's perspective. In some cases, it's the brand manager or the account director who represents the business need of the product or service that's being promoted. And in some cases, it's the creative director whose goal is to sort of inspire expansive thinking by the creative team. But I think, personally, in my experience, the best approach is to have all the major stakeholders collaborate on the brief. And that is to say, research and creative and brand leadership. And it's more complicated, it's a little more messy, but I think it tends to result in a document that acknowledges the business problem we have to solve. It's based on consumer insights. And it's a document that sort of inspires an elegant and effective solution by the creative team. I don't think one person or one department should hold it. I think because it's a shared process, the brief should be a shared document created by all those involved.
One of the topics that keeps coming up over and over and over on these podcasts is frequently the client really doesn't know what they really want. They have a vague notion of what it is going to look like or what they want the outcome to be. But are most creative briefs, are they effective? Or are there really flaws and problems that you have with ones that are presented to you?
Yeah, I think one of the problems is, and our agency is no exception, we're trying to get better at it. But briefs are often done in sort of a perfunctory way, and too often they're ignored by the people who really need them. And the reason for that is briefs are usually too long. I see 5-page briefs that are jam-packed with charts and statistics and multiple bullet points that tend to confuse rather than clarify. And then as you alluded to, sometimes briefs can be just too glib, with a directive that essentially says, create a marketing program that'll increase sales. Well, that doesn't give a creative team much to go on. Also, too many briefs are boring, written in dry business speak that doesn't really inspire creative enthusiasm. Your listeners might want to Google a little lesson online, and it was done by a British creative director a number of years ago. And it imagines the creative brief that Pope Julius II might have given to Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel. And it demonstrates where many briefs go wrong. I'll just read quickly from some of this. One bad brief that's given is an example that simply says, please paint the ceiling. This certainly tells Michelangelo what to do, but it gives him no direction whatsoever. And another brief said, we've got a problem with cracks in the ceiling. Can you cover it up for us? Well, this is not a very good brief because it gives Michelangelo irrelevant and depressing information. It suggests that nobody cares what he paints because the ceiling's going to fall in anyway. Then there's a brief that's a little closer to what a good brief should be, which is, please paint the ceiling for the greater glory of God and as an inspiration and lesson to his people. So this is a successful brief because Michelangelo knew what to do. He understood the importance of the project. And while it gave him guidelines, it didn't limit his creative thinking. The point is to always remember that a creative brief is an act of inspiration and motivation that'll encourage vibrant creative thinking to solve a real world problem.
It sounds to me like the best creative briefs are those that allow each party to do what they're best at, what their expertise is, and what they think that they can be most successful at. You described a wonderful creative brief there talking about the Sistine Chapel. But what would you say is the ideal format for a brief?
A one-word answer would be simplicity. Marketing problems are complex, but our job is to simplify the complex. In my view, a brief should include the following. It should be a simple but specific explanation of the communications objective. Whether it's boost attendance by 5% or increase traffic to the website by 25%. It should paint a picture of the target audience, and it should have a really key insight into consumer or audience behavior that will enable the creative team to craft messages that are both informational and emotional.
No, that's great. What would you think some of the characteristics of a really successful creative brief might be? Or have you dealt with one that really kind of struck you as being sort of a template for the perfect creative brief for a client you've worked with?
Yeah, I think one example, let me see. We do work for the Seattle Aquarium. It's an interesting proposition. What our research showed is that the Seattle Aquarium, the prime audience are parents with kids age 5 to 14 who want to provide their kids with entertainment with a purpose, to enjoy seeing the amazing and exotic creatures in the aquarium, but at the same time sort of gain an understanding of the marine environment and the importance to protect it. We boiled that down into what do we want people to think and what do we want people to feel. So the key proposition there was the aquarium is filled with amazing and fascinating stories of marine life. And then we put it in a sentence that says, jaws will drop, eyes will pop. And this led to an effective and award-winning campaign featuring fanciful illustrations of the animals and sea life that are on display at the aquarium, accompanied by interesting facts. So one ad depicted an illustration of two really cute and adorable sea otters floating side by side and holding, with their paws intertwined. And the headline said, "We sleep holding hands so we don't drift apart," which is a true story. That's what otters do. It was that kind of emotional approach to the problem that also, has sort of a scientific basis in terms of these are true facts about the amazing animals you will see at the aquarium.
Can you think of a situation where you were presented with something that you just said, I do not know where we're going to go with this or what we're going to do, but it ended up being a great success story?
Yeah, I think it kind of happens all the time, but we work for a brand called Premera Financial, and they are in a very crowded category of financial services where, it's a look-alike, sound-alike category, and they're principally in the annuity business. And again, that is not a subject matter that gets people really excited. We did a good deal of consumer research, and again, I think diverge for a minute. I think a terrific brief reveals a real understanding of the audience, almost like a Venn diagram, and an understanding of the client needs, and you try to find that intersection. So for Premera, our consumer research revealed that an insight that financial services language makes even smart people feel dumb. So our objective was to convince people that Premera provides honest, straightforward information, allowing you, as the consumer, to make an informed choice. So this opened the door to focused but energetic thinking, resulting in a campaign that featured two characters, identical twins, one named Gibber and one named Jabber, who use incredibly complicated and arcane language to say the simplest of things. So that led to engaging and approachable marketing communications promising that Symetra won't give you jibber jabber. Symetra took this as a directive to simplify the language in their contract, so it really resulted in a product change. So to simply answer your questions, yeah, we were faced with a smaller budget and a little-known brand in an incredibly competitive environment. Hopefully, we did some really great work by our research and creative people. We were able to find a niche for Symetra in an area where the advertising tends to be very commoditized.
Excellent, Jim. That is a great story. We're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back, maybe we can talk about some more real-world examples of really excellent creative briefs.
And if you're looking for creative information, I've got some for you here. It's all about the West Virginia University's online data marketing communications program. It's the first graduate program of its kind in the country, focusing on strategic thinking, critical problem solving, and informed decision making. Data Marketing Communications program prepares you for your career by learning innovative tactics from award-winning faculty and their friends and others in the industry, like those we're talking with here today. You can learn more. You know the drill. There's 9 letters with a couple of dots in there, and it'll take you to this magic place or this creative space, dmc.wvu.edu, for the Data Marketing Communications program at West Virginia University. Okay, now that the secret's out, everybody knows where the creative space is, we're going to get back to this creative conversation with Michael and his guest here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Obviously, the Data Marketing Communication program at West Virginia University is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm just going to start you off here. Jim, if I have an idea that I want to get some more exposure for the Data Marketing Communication program, I want to get the word out, and I've been told I need to come up with a creative brief. Where do I go from here? How am I going to put this thing together?
Well, I'd start with, based on your research, you don't just sit down and have a thin air creative brief. It's got to be based in a real world understanding of your product and the market you're trying to persuade. You come down to a single and meaningful audience benefit. Then a brief has to paint a clear picture of that target audience, not just dry demographics, but flesh and blood insight into the challenges and the opportunities of the people to whom you're trying to reach. And that's because a brief has to appeal to both the head and the heart. In other words, what do we want people to think about the product or service, and what do we want them to feel about it? And the brief has to be written in a way that inspires the creative team. And you think about some of the great brands that you see out there, they always do get down to this key nugget that is brand truth about their product, coupled with a human truth about the people they're trying to reach. Think about Geico, right? Very simple. 15 minutes can save you 15%. And what they offer is a more affordable and convenient way to buy insurance. You think about Motel 6, a clean, comfortable room for the lowest price of any national chain. And so again, you start to shape the message around the audience. Apple computers, right? Beautiful, intuitive technology that enriches our lives. And Nike, empowering the athlete in all of us, from elite professionals to weekend warriors. There's drama in every product or service. And the key is to find that truth about the product that links to a truth about the consumer.
You make that sound so simple, but we know that marketing problems really are very complex and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of players involved, and exactly what is my target market, and how are they going to buy, and are they going to rebuy? And, with all that complexity, you make it sound like a brief has to be so concise, so sharply focused. How do I really resolve that? How do I take something so complex and turn it into something that really is understandable, really sharp, and really is going to be effective in the long run?
Well, it's hard to do, and that's why most briefs fail, because they don't get that core proposition. But I think if you've got the right team around you, and if you do your homework, so much of the work in a successful marketing campaign starts before any ideation. It starts with the real hard work and digging. that reveals those two truths I thought about. There was a famous creative director, Ogilvy and Mather, the old Ogilvy and Mather advertising agency years ago, who said, "Give me the freedom of a tightly defined brief." In other words, the irony is it's a very disciplined document that frees you to be very creative and expansive in your thinking. But that's only because you set up these guardrails where the creative team can really focus intensely in a specific area instead of flying all over the place and maybe this and maybe that. As I said before, when the decision makers buy off on it, it makes everyone's job a little bit easier because you have a shared understanding of what the objective is.
You know, I can't remember who said it, and you probably do remember, but someone said that genius is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. So what is that effective balance between, let's say, information and inspiration to really create an effective brief that will give you the results you're really looking for?
It is a question of a lot of upfront work that's going to unlock the key to the product. In terms of the process, first of all, be positive and enthusiastic. You know, even if it's a troubled brand, even if it's a situation where there isn't a lot to celebrate about a brand, remember that you're looking to inspire and spark imagination, not only for the creative team, but everybody involved in the process. It's important, I think, to clearly outline the objectives. You want to explain why the project exists and what you want to achieve and what success looks like. You want to really avoid information overload and try to boil it down to relevant information in digestible chunks so they come away remembering the important points. And then I think it's also important to brief in person. You know, don't just attach your brief to an email and hit send. Get the group together, work the document over and over again, field objections and make revisions if possible. So, you know, it's a little bit like crafting legislation because you want to get everyone's opinion, end up with something that everybody can live with. And it has that simple path to success.
Excellent. I know that not only when I'm teaching classes at West Virginia, but where I'm teaching classes elsewhere, a common question is, how long does my paper have to be? And I'm just wondering, is there an optimal length for a creative brief?
Well, again, it has to be something that is concise. But it's interesting. Sometimes we do something called a brief because we'll write a longer document to give our client the comfort and assurance of knowing that we understand the marketplace, that we understand all the nuances and subtleties of the business, that we understand the competition and so on and so forth. And then for the internal, in the agency, we'll do a brief, which really boils it down to that simple 1 or 2 word sentences that is going to be the key driver for the audience. And again, it's language like I referred to before, you know, for Nike, empowering the athlete and all of us, from elite professionals to weekend warriors, or T-Mobile, for example, the Uncarrier. This is a wireless brand that staged when everybody else was zagging. So right, it's the complexity and then the simplicity, but sometimes it's good to have 2 documents so that the stakeholders who care about the things really goes into great depth and information about the audience and the marketing situation. But then for creative people who are just looking for that spark and inspiration, boil it down to a brief.
That's great. And thank you so much today for being with me, Jim. Could you please tell us a little bit about Copacino+Fujikado?
Yeah, we were founded in January of 1998 by myself and my business partner, Betty Fujikado. We've grown from 3 people in a sublet space, tiny space, to a full-service agency with 55 staffers. We're generalists. We work with a wide range of clients, such as San Michele Wine Estates, which is the nation's 5th largest winery, Holland America Line Cruises, Seattle Children's Hospital, Consumer Cellular, Seattle Mariners. And we provide creative research, production, and expertise in all digital and traditional media services. And you can learn more at Copacino.com.
That's great, Jim. And again, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And I just want to one more time wish everybody a very happy Halloween and a happy holiday season.
You've been listening to WVU Marketing Communications Today, brought to you live from West Virginia University, a bi-weekly program that sits at the intersection of data-driven decision-making and marketing practice, only on the Funnel Radio Network, for at-work listeners like you.